Dodgy advice and bad decisions can cost you big in real estate. We're here to make sure that that doesn't happen. Welcome to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Agresta, and it's time to take control of your property journey together. Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast, your listening how-to guide to the Australian financial and real estate market. I'm your host, Joe Agresta, and on today's show, I have some very special guests. We have Grace and Trent from Skilled Conveyancing. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Of course. And I have to give you guys a pretty good intro here because you are probably one of the longest standing Victorian conveyancing firms in a long time. So just to give everyone a background of what we're going to be learning and who we're going to be talking to today, buying or selling a home is probably one of the biggest financial moves you ever make. But behind every contract clause and signature is a team of experts making sure it runs all smoothly. And that's why today we're speaking with Grace McCluskey, operations leader and licensed conveyancer, and Trent Taylor, CEO and director of Skilled Conveyancing. Skilled Conveyancing has been in the game since 1990, making them one of the longest standing conveyancing firms in Victoria. With a recent merger with Eureka Conveyancing, they've expanded their reach across Melbourne and regional Victoria, handling everything from first home purchases and investments to subdivisions, as well as title transfers and more. Their experience has earned them multiple business awards and a reputation for handling complex transactions with ease. This episode is featured in the Abode AI app, where you can connect directly with Skilled Conveyancing, learn about their services, and get the right support when buying or selling your home. So, whether you're a first-time buyer, a seasoned investor, or just someone who loves a good real estate story, this one's for you. Grace, Trent, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I have to say, you just before we started this podcast this morning, you just mentioned to me now that you've been nominated for another award. That's huge. So the Australian Business Champions Award in the financing division, in the conveyancing division. Well done. That's huge.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, Slater, our marketing leader, has done a great job, and yeah, our results have been tremendous over the last couple of years, and so we just thought we'd put our hat in the ring and
See how we go.
Yeah.
Look at you now. Now we're going to send you to Sydney, is it, Grace?
No, please do not send me to Sydney.
We're like Beauty and the Beast, and the Beast's going to go.
Right, yeah, the rep. Grace has got it with the microphone.
I've got it. We have to go back and forth, you know.
That's why you're the ops leader.
That's exactly right.
Control everything. He's the real boss.
I am. Yeah.
That's fine. It's like, what do they say? Like, you know, there's the head of the company, right? But then whoever the neck is, that's the direction the company's turning.
Right hand, she is the best.
Well, guys, like I said, it's so good to have you here. I really love talking conveyancing. On this podcast, like, we have a lot of people that come in with requests in particular around conveyancing. And the most underrated part of the journey is conveyancing, because a lot of people don't find out about it until it's too late. So when you're buying a home, if you've put in an offer, that's generally when people start thinking, oh, what's a conveyancer? And the real estate agent or the mortgage brokers started saying, hey, you need to get the contract checked. And by that point, it's a bit too late. This episode, I really want to delve into when is the right time to engage. What do you guys do? How's your service different? And really give our audience an understanding of, what to expect and how to get the most out of a conveyancing service when they're buying or selling a home. So, to get into the start, let's start with your journey. How did you both get into conveyancing, and what motivates you to help people navigate the legal complexities of property transactions?
Take it away, Trent.
Well, I think because you do it. How did you get into it?
Okay. It's a bit of a funny story, actually. I didn't have a clue what conveyancing was when I started. So I was at TAFE. I was studying. I thought I wanted to be a prison guard. That's where I was leading down the track. Yep. Always loved law at school. Don't talk to me about the rest of the subjects, but law was a good one for me. So I always smashed it there. And then when I was at TAFE studying for what I thought was going to be a prison guard, I got a call from a family friend. She'd just opened up her own conveyancing company. Didn't have anyone working for her. She was just solo, but she started to pick up, so she needed some help. And she said, Grace, do you want to come do some reception work for me? I said, sure, what do you do? And she's like, conveyancing, do you know what that is? I said, no, I don't have a clue. So anyway, she gave me a rundown, and I started pretty much straight away, part-time in between my TAFE and whatnot, and I got stuck in the rabbit hole. So it's like, been here ever since. So yeah, but no, I did fall in love with it in terms of, helping people. When I really started to understand the difference you can make and, how much people actually need our help, that's when I was like, okay, give me more. What can I learn? And yeah, here I am 7 years later. So
How long were you with the first place you worked at?
Over 2 years. Yeah.
And then you went Skilled for how long?
I think it's my 6th year this year at Skilled.
Congratulations.
And what was the difference?
The difference?
Love it. He's going to interview you now.
Exactly.
Well, you were just saying last night.
Yeah, look.
When you came to Skilled,
It's really hard because there's a lot of conveyancers out there. And, when I first started, I thought I was being taught the right way and I absolutely wasn't. I came on and I had a really good mentor, which was Dawn, Trent's mum. She taught me everything I needed to know. She did things the right way, never took shortcuts. It was always like, you do it properly and you'll never have an issue. And we haven't. We have our stats for settlements going through are at, what is it?
97, 98.
97, 98% where we settle on time, scheduled time, due date.
I think that the countrywide statistic is about 85% the average.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually even realise that we're in the top 1% for PEXA, all their accounts. So it was a pretty great win, led by Grace.
No, I'll
huge.
take credit. No, that's huge. That's really important because I think one of the things that I've noticed when I've dealt with clients, so my background as ex-real estate agent, then buyer's advocate, is the settlement time can either be really seamless and like nothing happened, or it is an absolute shit show.
I love that word. It's a very true representation, yeah.
Well, it's like I need to give you an example, right? Because I would love to know what you would have done different. So I had a client, first home buyer, was on the market for maybe 6 weeks, purchased with us, found a property through us, and it came to settlement and everything seemingly was okay. There was no real big bumps in the road. And on the day of settlement, something went wrong with the conveyancing. So because the mortgage broker was a good mate of mine, actually knows Slater.
Okay, yep.
And we were coordinating the whole time.
Yep.
I was coordinating with the conveyancer and I said, where's this issue? Because I said, why can't we settle? And she said, the vendor hasn't fulfilled the contract terms.
Yeah.
And they said they were going to repair the hole in the wall. They said the buyer's gone down to the property this morning for the final inspection on the last day of all things. And I said, and I told this buyer, I said, you've got to go 2-3 weeks beforehand, at least. And I said to give it enough time. Anyway, so she goes, okay, I'm going to pop down there now. I'm like, far out. Okay, day of settlement. And she's gone in and there was crap not done. Total nightmare. There was still things that weren't repaired. There was issues and the vendor said, I don't have time to fix it. But he's had it since, like, the settlement period was 3 months. He's had 3 months to correct it. And then settlement got delayed by 3 days. So because we were on a Friday, so then we went over the weekend. Monday was the settlement. The removalists came. The rental was out. She had to go to her parent. It was a total mess.
Yeah, a spiralling mess.
That's right. And I'm like, what do you do to help buyers understand how important that settlement is, getting ready for that day and making sure it does go smoothly? Because like you said, 98% on, in that first 1%, top 1% of closing and settling on time, huge, huge, because I hear so many stories.
Yeah, look, I think, I honestly think it starts at the beginning. So when people come and they don't have contract reviews, I find they're the ones that have the problems because we'll always say to them, at least 1 week prior to settlement, get in, do your final inspection. Don't leave it till last minute because it doesn't give us the time for the negotiation. And a lot of people are removing the clauses from the contract that allow you to withhold the $5,000 if in the instance, if in the instance something's not been done and we can't reach an agreement prior to settlement, which makes it really difficult. Yeah, at the beginning, we'll pre-warn them. We'll always tell them, go in, let us know straight away, don't sit on it, and be thorough. If you're thorough at the beginning, that wall, maybe the hole in it could have been found prior. If it happened during, then, we would have had a week to fix it. So, and I think always putting consequences on things is really important as well, because when people have like open-ended conditions or something like that that just says, the hole in the wall has to be fixed prior to settlement, well, the vendor's not going to care about that. What happens... It's too loose, exactly right. What happens if they don't fix the hole in the wall? Well, if we take 5,000, I can guarantee they're going to do it. So, the consequences are important. But I think if people don't leave it till last minute, that really helps too, because it does give us the time to negotiate and get it sorted so that you don't that's it. Hassle the vendor, get the agent onto it, speak to the other side, do everything you can. Usually the agents can push them along a bit too.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that separates us from other conveyancers is that we're very proactive. So one of the things that Grace and I measure on a weekly basis is how many tasks we have remaining on our current files for the next fortnight, where a lot of conveyancers, from what we understand, even solicitors, they're very reactory, like, okay, what do we have to do today? We're not looking what we have to do today, we're looking what we have to do for the next 2 weeks. So that so when a file comes on, we'll do as much as we can in the first day or so we're ahead of the game. And because we have that paradigm, we tend to drive the brokers or the banks or the vendors, even the other side conveyancers, and a lot of people aren't as unorganised. So we tend to be the drivers, and we need that because we don't want our clients having any fines or fees.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think that's super important. And I like that that's the differentiator. I think being planned and organised is a very underrated skill. And when it's done properly, you see a big difference, especially with professionals. It comes undone pretty quick when someone's disorganised.
Yeah, and I think that I mean, you asked earlier, what was our journey into the conveyancing?
Yeah.
And so, my mother, Dawn Barry, she started in 1990, as you said, but I bought it in 23.
Right.
And my funny story was I've been coaching businesses for 20 years all over the world and buying businesses and directed businesses and stuff. And I never even thought about ever being in the conveyancing game. But Dawn's, getting to the retirement area, and there was just a comment made, well, I'd love to keep it in the family, the legacy. And it really touched my heart. And I thought, what, let's continue Mum's legacy and maybe one of my children can take it on. And so the interesting part of joining with Grace and Dawn was that I'm not a conveyancer. I don't know, but I know business. And so it was my innocent questions, which Grace would always roll her eyes going,
I still do.
She still does, exactly. But that's where I sort of said, well, why do we run tasks like that? Like, can we be more proactive? And Grace is so open and a great listener when, and if I ever have the rare idea, Grace says, well, actually that could work. And then we implement it, every single week. We're implementing little things to make the business cleaner because conveyancers work so hard.
Yeah.
And I worked in a lot of different industries and, owned businesses in many different industries, but she said, I don't think I've seen, I know everybody works hard.
No.
But the conveyancers, they work hard, but they're on the ball all the time. Like, they're reacting to people's disorganisation or the emotion of buying a house and fear of losing it or having a consequence or fine. These women are incredible because they have to respond. You're almost on edge. So I think that's something I'm really proud of is that, one, they take so much care and pride. It's almost like my team are the client. Sometimes, it's like, no, but they're going to get a fine and I don't want us to get a fine. I go, we're not getting a fine as a client. Yeah, no, but I go, that's awesome. So I love the fact that, and that's been born from Dawn, like Dawn's values and, she's very thorough and care and we fight for the client. It's not, oh, well, bad luck, it's just a client. But that is not our way. So it's more like a family, which is beautiful. I
really love that. I love that you took on the legacy. I think that's one thing, that a lot of people probably, if they're not in the industry, would say, oh, this is way out of my depth. Sorry, Mum, I would love to help, but I haven't got the first thing about conveyancing. I don't know what I'm doing. Whereas you took on the challenge and said, I know business, but I'll rely on the experts who are the conveyancers to keep pushing the business forward. I'll just do the operations and, lead the ship or steer the ship. I think that's really cool. Kudos to you for taking on such a cool business and working with these, great women who know exactly how to help people. And I think one of the things that I wanted to get into here is, like I said, every property transaction is pretty unique and sometimes things can get tricky. So can you share a particularly challenging situation where you had to step in and resolve maybe a complex legal issue for someone?
Yep, I just had this the other day. So one thing about me is contract reviews, they still to this day make me nervous. And it's not because I don't know what I'm doing and that I'm not confident, but it's because I take on the client's emotions. So I had
over-empathise.
I do over-empathise, yeah. I had a single mum. She'd just recently separated. She had a young boy and she was looking for a house. So obviously they had a house with a partner and, she was going through all that yucky stuff. She was looking for an apartment because it was all she could afford. And she said, look, I need a contract review. Yep, no worries. Get the contract. It was 400 pages. So I got it and I'm scrolling through it and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to shatter this young mum's dreams, single mum, Anyways, she was really lovely. So it was over a 2-hour conversation. The apartment had not only cladding, but there was a burst pipe in the wall and it was affecting all of the other apartments. There was some major works that had to be done. There was about 100 pages worth of upgrades and improvements and stuff that needed to be done to fix the issue. And beside each one, it would say plumber, this needs to be done. Electrician, this needs to be done. And it would say on the very right-hand column, whose responsibility it was, if it was going to be the owners or if the owners corporation were going to pay for part of it. Anyway, she loved this property and it was really cute, and I understood, you know, I always have a flick through beforehand, look at the properties and have a yarn to the clients about them, but as you do. Anyways, I could understand why she wanted it, but I said to her, look, you know, financially now you've lost an income essentially by not having your hubby there, and you've got a kid to look after. And I said to her, I know you don't want to hear this, but it's going to cost you so much money. So anyway, I said to her, go and get some advice from a registered builder or something. See what they say when they look at the list as to how much they reckon it's going to cost. She came back to me 3 days later and said, thank you so much. It was going to be $2 million.
Get out.
$2 million worth of upgrades, fixings. And the worst part was the owners corporation had plans to have each owner remove themselves from the property for 6 months while they did all the upgrades. Yep. And she was set on it. So, yeah.
So can I ask, did she engage before she obviously made an offer?
Yes, she did. Yep. So she hadn't signed the contract, thankfully, when we did the review. You know, I don't like to say to people, look, I wouldn't buy it if it was me, but I will always try and give them the positives and the negatives. And I'll say to them, you know, I'm going to tell you what you don't want to hear, but in the long run, it is going to save you money and it is going to protect you. And at first, I think she was a little bit taken aback because she probably was expecting that, yeah, that's right, everything's going to be okay, which, you know, is not always the case. But she's actually found something since that was not as costly, obviously.
Yeah, nice.
Didn't have all the issues. And yeah, she's like already envisioning herself living there with her son. So it was really nice to see.
I'm so glad that had a happy end.
Yeah.
He's having a happy end now.
All that.
That's this is the power of engaging professionals at the right time. And, you know, imagine that you didn't have the guts to have that honest conversation, because you could have easily done the review, just set the feedback and said it's up to you.
Yep.
Good luck with your purchase. Let us know when you've purchased, and chased the money side rather than chasing.
And that's probably one thing that we are really good about. And another example is that I had a client yesterday with a similar kind of issue where there was some general business in the owner's corporation with some water ingress issues. He'd already paid for the review, but I called him and said, look, this is what I found. Do you want to save the money that you've paid for the review for another property knowing this, or do you want to go ahead?
Yeah.
So we will always give them the option so that they're not paying for the review and then, you know.
What's our mantra about relationships and money?
Relationships over money, this one always says. So
No, that's
Always. Relationships are more important than money. So if we take care of the people and we do the right thing, and sometimes we have to be the bearer of bad news, but yeah, we just think it's that proactive mentality again. It's better to let them know in advance, and it's their choice to make. It's not ours, but you know, we're about protecting because we're a family business. So when a client comes on, we just treat it's like a family member. So how do we protect them? But not in a prohibitive way that we make,
no, of course not.
You know, stupid, really restrictive clauses or anything like that. But if we see a client exposed, you know, it's our obligation, you know, legally to let them know, but compassionately, it's how we deliver it. And I think that people feel that, you know, which is really, really important.
They absolutely would. I think everyone can tell when they're being treated like a transaction or a number over a genuine, you know, relationship or a rapport that you've built. And I'm interested in your perspective on that question, Trent, because you've come into the business, so you're overseeing, like Grace is having her direct experiences with the market. How do you find this transaction overall? Have you seen anything that's been particularly challenging?
Not so much, because again, I'm not a conveyancer, but I think the perspective that I get is that I'm talking to law firms and I talk to other conveyancing companies. So we bought another conveyancing company in Ballarat last year, and that was to really increase our exposure in the West, and I'm looking to acquire more conveyancing businesses each year. And so therefore I'm talking to them. And so in the process of potentially acquiring businesses, I naturally have to ask questions as to how they do things. You know, do they charge for this and the like? And we've recruited, how many people we put on the last, probably 4 or 5 in the last 12, 18 months. And even talking to other conveyancers who are looking to come in, and I ask them about, you know, why they're leaving. And it's really interesting how they start to tell me about the firm they're at now or the previous ones. What I've learned from that is that our contract reviews, when we do it quite thoroughly, like a lot of people will just skim it. Some people, you know, won't even charge for it. So that tells me that they're probably just doing a 5-10 minute review where they get, you know, Grace and Jess and the team will review it for 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half. And I go, wow, that's a stark difference. The fact that I think that we give those advice and we'll change the clauses, and some agents don't like that because it slows things down, as you can relate to. But at the same time, we will communicate with the agent, and even buyer's agents. We'd like to speak to them first to just give them a heads up out of respect, because we want to work in conjunction with them. And that's often appreciated, whereas a lot of conveyancers or solicitors don't do that. So there's just little subtleties. So, Grace teaches me every week, and shares different stories. And I go, I wonder if we could say it this way. She goes, oh, that's good. So it's actually a really beautiful synergy.
Yeah.
Because there's no ego with us. Grace will share her things, and she's open to perspective I've got, and then, I've got ideas, and then Grace will go, well, we could do it this way. And then it's really just integrating it through our culture of our team. So I think that from a legal perspective, even the lawyers who work with us, so we have sort of in-house lawyers that they're not in our business or we don't part own it, but it's an informal relationship, and they often comment that that's great advice, Grace or Jess or Dawn, they're quite surprised that as conveyancers that we would know that stuff.
It's awesome that Dawn obviously is a big influence on,
Massive.
She's built the business, being the founder, but then the way she's instilled all of those behaviours and like those little nuanced things that maybe to another business would be like, oh, why would we do that? She's obviously really trained you guys well. It comes out very clearly that the passion for what you're doing goes far beyond, I just need to read a contract and go home, and I just need to make sure this person doesn't get sued or this doesn't happen at a property. It goes far beyond. And I think that's really remarkable. And to be honest with you, I've done a lot of these interviews with different conveyancers, and they're all great in their own way. They've got a different skill set, but what's unique about you guys and what really shines through is this empathy and this way that you're talking about your clients, the amount of care that you take, especially that story of how much heartache, Grace, you would have saved that poor single mum.
Yeah, that's right.
These are the stories that you don't hear about, and I think often what's talked about is all the successes, and that's what I do want to get to. That was a massive, in my opinion, a hard story, but a successful one, because you did the right thing.
I think what I'd like to say there too is that what's really opened my eyes as a newbie to the industry, and hiring these, so we have some younger team members, and we have some wiser team members, more around my age, but they've worked in different law firms for like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And so, they're super experienced, done this for a long time. And they've come into Skilled, and, Jan, she goes, within 3 weeks, she goes, God, I've been doing this for 30 years and we never did those checks. We never did that. The word that always comes up for us from our new team members is how thorough we are. And that's the signature of Dawn. And
That's
Dawn
awesome.
really taught Grace, and Grace has embraced that thoroughness. We will not, even if an agent or a broker, like a referral partner says, can you go around that corner? Grace is, no, we will never cut the corners, because we're here to represent the client. And everyone's trying to minimise their costs, and everyone's trying to, boost that. But, there's a lot of conveyancers out there who are charging really small fees. But we know as experts that to be doing that, you've got to be cutting corners to be able to charge that. And that's a sad part of the industry. But thoroughness is something that, we take pride on. Even when we recruit our team members, normally, there's one interview. For us, this is a bit of Trentism, I suppose.
Trentism, I like that. Maybe I'll adopt that word.
So we do a 3-part interview process. So they have a one-on-one with me, and it's really just to determine their character. What sort of people are they? Because I know Grace is so protective of her team. And so they get past me. The second stage it's Grace and I. And Grace will start, bringing in the technical knowledge and the like, which is great. And then if they get past Grace and I, they then have it with the whole team. And so all of our team will ask them a question or two, and they need to ask the question, because if a team member is going to join us, they're going to invest 40 hours a week, for a long term, hopefully. It's important that they know who they're working with first, so that can they fit in? Are there any triggers? And it's important for our team, can we work with them? So if you get that team right, and there's a team dynamic, and we set high standards, there's accountability, there's transparency. If we get that team right, Grace is really looking from the filter, do they know their stuff? But she's also, this is my interpretation, she's also using the filter of, can I trust them, and will they look after the client like we do? Can they work at that level? Do they have that genuine care and empathy? So I think that's that thoroughness, and that comes from it, at our recruitment stage, how we work together across a week and a month, and then that's how it comes across with the client. So it's pretty cool.
I really love that. I think that's a very different interview style. Like, I know a lot of the corporates will try and do something similar with panel interviews, but it's usually with management and different management. It's like, you've got heads of departments, and I remember when I worked at RACV full time, that was one of the things where I was interviewed by a lot of ops managers, and I'm like, just a call center consultant. Like, all right.
I don't need all this.
Yeah, it's like, it was
Exactly.
But I think it was a bit more of a test to see, performance, and obviously we're going to work under their branch. So it was different. But what I like about what you've mentioned is that's really unique, to have an interview where you actually go and meet the team. Because often one of the most intimidating parts of going for any type of employment is you have no idea who your team is. So you meet the boss, yes, maybe you meet the second in charge, and that's it. And then you start your new day, you go into an office of 10 people and you're like, oh crap, now I've got to fit in. So I really like that you take that time and care. And it also flows into your business being conveyancing, like in that sense of who is there is really aligned, values aligned to your business, aligned to the customers, aligned to the goals and the mission that Dawn's basically set the pathway for. Everyone's learning that one way of working. And that's really cool. So kudos to you guys and you, Trent, for having your Trentism, as you called it.
I shouldn't have said that. I'm going to regret that.
Maybe. I'll put it on your profile.
Yeah.
So,
Oops.
but no, and look, I think one of the things that the listeners are probably wondering at this point is what can they expect? So can you walk us through like a typical I'm a home buyer scenario? So it's like I'm thinking about buying a home. I found something I want to make an offer on. Let's assume I found it at the right time and I've thought to get conveyancing first. What's a typical process for a customer, like a buyer in particular?
Yeah, so I always like to speak to people over the phone. Obviously, there is people out there that would prefer the emails and whatnot, but ideally I can have the conversation with them to find out where they're at with it, speak to them about the contract review and the benefit of it. I like to give scenarios too so that they know, we're not just trying to get the money. We actually want to spend the time with them. And in order to do that, obviously, they need to be willing and open to spending an hour to an hour and a half on the phone. We do offer written ones for them as well in the instance that, they can't make the time to do it verbally. But yeah, I think that's one of the most important things. So once we would find out whether or not the offer had been accepted following the review, providing the client still wanted to go ahead, we'd touch base with them, see how they went. If it's accepted, they get some instruction sheets and first letters from us. Everything's electronic, so it's good for them. Yeah, they don't. We do accommodate for the older ones that, do struggle. But
Wiser.
Sorry, wiser. My apologies.
You stand corrected.
I'm older. So so everything's electronic to make it as simple as possible. And we are always very transparent and open about, what they can expect. We try not to bombard them too much and do what we need to in the back end to make sure that everything's ready for settlement. I'm sure everyone will come to know it. They call me a dog with a bone with the banks.
Oh, I love
Trying
it.
to make sure that, they're all ready because, as we were talking about the PEXA stats before, we don't like the settlements rolling over, especially with first home buyers, because you want their experience to be known. It's not saying that we don't treat every file the same, because we do, but we want to make the experience good for them because it's the first thing that they're going to remember. It's a big thing for them.
Yeah.
And financially, you want to make sure that they're okay, and you don't want them to be incurring extra fees and stuff if they're a little bit slack with the documents or, things that can cause the bank to delay. So yeah, we always follow up with them regularly, check in. If we find that they're not returning documents quickly, we'll always pick up the phone and say, look, are you struggling with it? Is it a time thing? When can we help you with it so that we can get it done and kind of give them the context as to why we need it? So yeah, that's generally where it's at in terms of process. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that to wrap it up, to what you were saying in compliment to you is that we slow down the front end to speed up the back end. When what that means is that when a new client comes on board, we probably ask more questions than most conveyancers would need to, because we like to educate. Our front end process is, as Grace was saying, like she provides different scenarios. We find out if they've actually done, bought or sold before, have they gone through that experience before? And if they haven't, Grace will always spend, or Jess will take that extra time, same as Dawn, to educate and support. Because if as Grace said, I think one of the first questions was, if we get it right at the beginning through the transaction, is a lot easier. Not only do we, make inquiries for curiosity, which is another one of our values, we educate and let them know what the process is going to be. But then I would say that the girls tend to guide. So it's not, they will email, they will call, we will text, depending on what the client needs. So we're quite flexible in that regard. But it's so important to us to communicate with them, and often their brokers and agents will communicate with them all through the process so they know what the next step is. Like if you look at our first letter versus the way it was done in the past, or other conveyances, like 6 stages. And so then our client knows, they're educated that there are 6 stages and this is the stage we're at. And then what we need from you in this next stage is this. So that's what I mean by it's educational, guided. We hold their hands. If they're super experienced and don't need that, that's fine. But even the experienced clients will go, wow, I've never seen it broken down like this.
And I think that's because it's so foreign to a lot of people. Like first home buyers, 100%. But even your second time buyers, unless you're like some sort of seasoned investor where you're always purchasing property and you kind of get to know the process in and out, you're starting to understand what to look for and you become more affluent. But in these scenarios, I think what would probably be more common for you guys is those first time or second time buyers who are buying after 7 years again and probably need a lot of that explanation and hand holding. And I think it's key for them. Like I always have this thing in the back of my mind that I'm saying, you don't know what you don't know. You're not expected to know it. Buyers, I think, have an unrealistic expectation of, that we've brought them up in Australia, like our parents, like you should know what to do. I bought a house, you know how to buy a house.
Yeah.
Do this, do that, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So then there's this front that we put on that, oh yeah, we know how to negotiate. Oh yeah, we know what to do. And then when crunch time hits, I didn't get the conveyancing contract done in time. I didn't, get my mortgage broker lined up and know that I have finance. I've just literally gone in and made an offer. Now I'm stuffed. And that's why I'm so passionate about, what we do here and bringing on aligned businesses like you guys as partners, because if we can build a community of people that are like-minded, values-driven, and all about the customer experience to make sure that they understand what they're doing, I think that's key in any transaction, especially real estate. We're dealing with people's biggest assets. So, imagine getting that wrong, which I'm sure you've seen.
Yep.
I think one of the challenges around that is that each of the broker and the finance person and the agent and the conveyancer, we need to stay in our lanes. Some of the legal challenges we have often is when the agent will give some suggestions or advice that's not legally correct.
Yep.
Which gets a bit tricky. Like we've got to be really sensitive, but from Skilled Conveyancing perspective, we know the law. Like we're specialists. We're not generalists like a solicitor. Generally, 4 or 5 different law incomes coming in. Conveyancer has one.
Yeah.
So we're like a specialist, a surgeon, and typically the lawyer solicitors are like a GP, a broker. A real estate agent. They're amazing at selling houses and doing what they're doing, but they don't know law. And so sometimes, unfortunately, our clients will take what their word is for gospel, and we've really got to undo that, but in a sensitive way. And that's probably the trickiest parts. Well, I think for any of your clients to come and speak to us, then they've got to understand that we are the specialists, that like this is the only thing that we do all day, every day, for nearly 40 years. If we don't know it, and because we don't know everything, we've got a team of specialist lawyers, or which Grace can speak into later, but that can back us up. So if we don't know, we'll go and find it.
And that actually leads me to a scenario, because you brought up the real estate agent. This is a really common thing I see, especially advocate on my side when I'm talking to agents, or a buyer will come to me after inspecting a property and say, the agent told me that I shouldn't put, subject to building and pest inspection, and they told me that I shouldn't have any subject to clauses. I'm sure you guys would get that kind of hear that feedback from customers and stuff like that. How do you navigate that? Like, do you end up getting involved with the agents at some point, or not really?
Look, I like to encourage the clients, from my perspective, to get the hang of getting into the negotiations themselves and give them that confidence. I will get involved if they need me to, but I like them to have a go so that they can feel empowered and go, yep, I've done this, I've negotiated this. This is my time, my house, and it adds to the experience. But there has been times where I have had to get involved, and I have had clients question me saying that's not what I was told. Luckily, as Trent was saying, we are very knowledgeable and we've been around for a while, so we know things, but we can always point the clients in the direction as to where to look as well, which generally helps in terms of legislation and stuff. I can say, look, I can send you a link, and then they'll go, no, it's okay, I trust you. So sometimes you just got to throw a little sneaky in there, and they're like, yep, all right.
But it's not a sneaky, it's the actual fact. And I don't feel that you do that to be smart, Alec. It's just that, hey, look, because obviously the client doesn't know go, sometimes they wouldn't have used us before and they wouldn't have used the agent before. So they go, who do we believe?
They got to build the trust.
That's right. So we would rather, when you say do it sneaky, it's, well, here's the facts. This is the legislation that you are bound by. You read it because this is what we're telling you. So I think you're deprecating yourself with.
I'm still calling it a sneaky.
Okay, right. Yeah.
And that's where she's the smart aleck.
Yeah.
But no, I totally get the context of sneaky, right? It's like
just a sly little.
Here's some information.
That's right.
And like you said, Trent, it's more about not being sneaky necessarily, but it's like you want to be a little bit cheeky and go, it's here. Like you can read it. We know it's legit. We've been doing this a long time. But if you don't believe it, I totally get that you need to build the rapport.
We can back it up.
Yeah, we can back it up. Here's some information.
Yeah.
So totally get that.
And most of the time, it's kind of like a segue into having a little giggle with the clients as well, which I love. I'm the known comedian in the office with the clients, so I'm putting the crown on my head for that one. You, I hope you're not going to you. Yeah, okay.
So
Dawn is the same.
This is Dawn 2.0.
Literally, yep.
Dawn, she is.
Oh, good. So you have two mums.
She's young enough to be my daughter.
I'm only joking. And one thing I wanted to ask, before we wrap up, is, settlement day. We've spoken a little bit about this, but I think one of the things that often gets missed is what is the process that happens on settlement day? Like, what should buyers expect? Because I think the coordination for settlement is huge, and it's the most, like I said, it can be the most seamless or the most stressful thing that happens in this transaction. What should buyers prepare for, and then what do you guys do behind the scenes to make sure this settlement goes through at the time it says it's going to go through? Yeah,
so one of the most important things for us is at the beginning in our first letter, we tell the clients about PEXA Key. Now, 2 weeks prior to settlement, we send them the invitation to it. That gives them live updates as to what's actually happening on the settlement day. So not that it happens very often, but PEXA Key is an app that you have on your phone, and it has the property address and everything like that, but it just gives you the stage that you're at in terms of the settlement. So it might say, your conveyancer's signed off, or it's settling, and then they're straight on it when it's settled. PEXA notifies them, which is good for us as well, because if we're stuck on the phone or something like that it's not delaying the client from getting the keys. It also allows us to set up direct notifications to other parties, like your brokers, your real estate agents and stuff like that, which is really cool. And obviously, if for whatever reason the clients are overseas or something like that and they need us to communicate with their family, we can chuck them in there too. So yeah, it's really good. But that's probably one of the key things for the clients in terms of what we're doing in the background. As Trent said, we're always ahead of the game with our tasks and whatnot. So we're checking in with the banks 2 weeks prior to settlement every single day until we've got some form of confirmation in writing that they're ready to go. Once we've got that, we start doing what we need to on our end to get it finalised. And we always look to sign off on the settlement at least an hour before settlement so that, we're not going to have any issues. And obviously keeping the client informed is really important as well. So if we feel that there's something that's going to be delayed in terms of a bank or something like that, we'll always let them know.
What percentage of files are you also driving the other side's conveyancer or solicitor? So how where the bank's ready and we're pushing and driving, sometimes the other side hasn't signed or whatever. Yeah. Do you want to start speaking?
Yeah, so I think, mainly it's banks. I don't so much as have an issue with other sides unless, it's very rare, so I won't even get into it. But
before you even continue, so when you say banks, are you talking the broker themselves or the actual bank through the broker?
The bank through the broker, yeah. So generally, and I won't name names, but there is some banks that they won't settle until a certain time. So even if the client wants to, and we're finding it more so especially with simultaneous settlements, people that are trying to buy and sell at the same time that need the funds from the sale carried across, if they want to get that done early so that they can have removalists in between and stuff like that, if they've got a certain bank, they're not going to settle until 2-3 o'clock. Which can be, there's some banks that will not settle.
Is there
till a certain time?
Do we know if there's any
the reason?
Yeah.
There's two reasons. For one bank, they're acting as a solicitor for the bank, which then means that they've got to get funds from them into their own trust account for them to upload to PEXA. The second scenario would be that it's an influx. They've got too many files, and they have a system now where it's this time only.
Okay.
It's 2 o'clock time only. Yeah. So I don't know what they do in between, in the morning beforehand, but you won't get them to settle any earlier than 2.
And that's just with these particular banks that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But then other ones obviously
are fine.
Are
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of percentages and whatnot, I mean, I'd probably be making up a figure, but I would say it's very rare that we would have a settlement where we're not having to chase something. So whether it's a bank, whether it's the other side, whether we're waiting on confirmation for a last minute check of a final inspection, you know, it does happen. We try and avoid it, but schedules and stuff like that for some clients, they just can't make it happen. So you do have the last minute ones. But yeah, we still have our stats pretty high considering, I suppose, which is a good thing.
Yeah. In the top 1%. Like,
That's right.
It's because we have time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so if I think the other side of it too is resourcing. You know, there's 7 conveyancers, 3 or 4 of them are licensed, and so you know we probably over-resource our company so that there's time and flexibility so that we can react and respond to clients' needs, or when a you know something goes wrong with a file, you know, and it pulls Grace off what she's normally doing, she's got time to do it because we've got team to back it up. And I think that that's pretty rare because most conveyancing companies are generally only 1, 2 or 3. You know, we're big, and there's some that are much larger. But I think, you know, from a client's perspective, if you've got a conveyancer with that many licensed conveyancers and that many conveyancers, that, you know, we've got backup, we've got support, we can respond so much quicker and we can get onto the front foot very clearly. And the way we use our software and our notes, you know, it's easy for another conveyancing team to pick it up. So that's something we always plan for, those contingencies.
That's excellent. Very great answer, very thorough. Like, I think that just says it all.
Yeah, it does. And it's not like it used to be. Like when I first started, I was kind of in between going from paper settlements to PEXA. Right. No one wanted PEXA. Everyone still wanted the paper settlements. You ask everyone now, not one person will put their hand up and say, let's go back to paper settlements.
It's always the way. I think whenever new technology comes,
correct,
there's this rejection, and then there's a period of crap, how do we work with it?
And I always say to the clients, it's the best change that's ever happened in our industry, because back, you know, it was probably 6 years ago now. If you didn't have a check, there was something missing from what they used to call your settlement packet, even like just one document, you couldn't settle. And then you're driving to the city, you'd have to go all the way back to the office, you'd be on the phone to the banks trying to get them to come back out, and they're fully booked. So you might not be able to settle till next day, which obviously on a Friday would be a nightmare. So, you know, now with PEXA, we're really lucky because we just sit in front of the screen looking pretty, but doing things in the background as well. And, you know, we can settle up until 5 o'clock. So it really allows the clients the time they need if things are going wrong.
No, that's awesome. And I think, you know, one of the questions I wanted to ask, and I always ask every guest, is what's one piece of advice you want to give to, you know, obviously someone who's a home buyer listening at the moment might be thinking, crap, like I wanted to offer on that property, or crap, I just offered on that property and I didn't even look at the conveyancer. What's your piece of advice to buyers in general at the moment in this current climate? What can they look out for or do?
Do you want to start or do you want me to?
Ladies.
Okay, thanks so much. Thanks so much. I'll take it. I think, you know, Trent touched on it briefly before. For me, the slowdown to speed up is something that I didn't fully understand until recently when I put it into a conveyancing perspective. And for a client, and first home buyers especially, they have this idea where they see a property and it might look all beautiful, but, you know, there can be underlying issues. Doing a contract review is the best advice and the best 1 to 1.5 hour you will ever get. Yeah. And it's the one thing that's going to save a whole heap of stress and hassle and make that process smoother. And money, of course, yeah. So I think that's really important. But I also think, you know, there's always going to be more opportunities. There's always going to be more properties. It's the first property that the clients see is not necessarily going to be the last. So when they're so set on a property and it's not working out for them, I suppose we don't want them to be disheartened. So the advice that I would give someone is do the right things, do your checks beforehand, and go in with the mentality that it might not work out so that you aren't disheartened. I've had so many cases where clients have like, oh, Grace, but I can see myself living there. I understand that. They'll come back a week later. We've found this really good property. You won't believe it. It's better than the last. You know what I mean? So with things like that, it's like you just got to be open-minded, and, you know, it can sound really negative, but if you go in with the mindset that it might not happen, you know, you're either going to be fine with that or you're going to go, oh my God, it did happen. Like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Yeah, so surprised. That's right. Yeah. That's, I think, really important for people buying houses, even when it's not their first rodeo. Do you have anything?
Yeah, so I think I would say is that choose your team wisely. As we've stated in this podcast that or episode, that, you know, we are specialists. You know, we've been around for a long time. We are really thorough. we care. So, when you're buying a house or that you're going to live in, a family home, or it could be an investment property, it could be commercial, could be a farm, whatever it is, it's a big transaction. You're not going to make too many like that. Choosing your team wisely is really important. I would tend to say, we are specialists. So, if you need heart surgery, you're going to go to your GP because he's a good bloke and, you've been going in for years. Well, no, you'd probably want a cardiologist, a heart surgeon to deal with that. It's something that's so integral to your body and your health. You will pay the money and you will work with them. So, the fortunate part about using Skilled is, we are specialists, but we don't charge like a lawyer or a solicitor typically. And, we're not the bottom sellers who's going to, or the bottom feeders, we call them. That are charging, so little so you can get it cheaper. So, it's like anything in life, you get what you pay for.
That's right.
We're pretty much middle of the road. We're not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive, but we're the best. So if you're going to, would you skimp and save on a heart surgeon? No, you'd typically get, if it's your child, you'd get the best heart surgeon to give you the best chance. So, for Skilled Conveyancing, that's what it is for when you're buying and selling a property. We're going to do it properly. We're thorough. We're going to care. You're like a family member, and we have the backup and support and experience to take you through it. So, and we'll guide and hold your hand. So I think that build your team wisely, be careful who you listen to, and just do your research, do your homework.
Well, I really love that. Great advice, both of you. I think anyone listening to this is probably like, how do I call them and where do I call them? So where should buyers, if they want to contact you, obviously, for anyone tuning in, if you're listening through the app, you can connect directly in the Abode AI app with Skilled Conveyancing. But if they're looking directly to you, or maybe they're just listening on their drive home right now, how can they get in touch?
Well, I think that obviously you can go to skilledconveyancing.com.au. Obviously, if you've got an inquiry and you want to have a chat, no financial obligation. You can just talk to Grace, and that Grace, you can email her, grace@skilledconveyancing.com.au. So pretty much all our leads and anyone that, that's interested will email Grace or call us on 039 729 3512.
He got it.
Yeah.
Oh,
We do have a few different numbers for different regions, but that's the key number. So that the website, you can click a button on there and
inquire.
we'll get a lead and inquiry. So that's probably the easiest, and we've only just started the socials, so there's no social handles that I can recall at this stage. But probably the cleanest way is just email Grace, and she'll respond to you within 2 to 3 business hours. So it's a very quick turnaround, and she'll give you the love and support you need.
Love it. Thank you so much, guys. One final question, because I have to have a bit of fun. I always do.
Here we go. It's ourselves.
Brace yourselves. I didn't put this in the brief.
Oh, gosh.
Pineapple on pizza. No.
All right. So you've both been in the industry a while. All right. What's the most unexpected or bizarre thing you've come across in a property contract where you're like, what the hell is that?
Well, this is going to be on me now. Are you sure you don't want to make something up? Come on. Let me think. What have I had? This wasn't me specifically, but I was talking to someone about this, and I can't for the life of me remember who it was, but we were having a bit of a giggle. There's material facts in a contract. I don't know whether all conveyancers do it. I know real estate agents do, but we do it as well. So we'll get the clients to fill out certain things, certain disclosures they have to tell us. And one person thought it was really necessary to state that, I'm giggling already, to state that that there's ghosts in this house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so really felt like it was necessary for any purchasers to know that.
So hang on, this is a seller that's obviously disclosing anything that's in the home, like, there's obviously a hole in the wall, and you've got to tell them about that. Ghosts, right.
And that's all I've got to say.
Well, the selling point, that one is...
Please know if it made it into the contract.
It didn't. Oh, no. We all just laughed about it. Obviously not to the client because that'd be a bit rude, but yeah, ghosts.
So how did you navigate that with the client?
Well, luckily it wasn't me, but the person that did just said, look, we'll leave that up to the purchaser. So that's really all you can say. If it was me personally, I probably would have had to just be, sorry, can you just 1 second? Yes, I'm back now. You know what I mean? Like just take a second to giggle offside. But no, I suppose everyone's got their beliefs and whatnot. So it can be a little bit funny about what pops in there. But yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, I would like that disclosure.
You would?
I would run.
Yeah. Literally, like it.
Because I don't know what's real and fake.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume it's real. And if you put it in this contract, I'm out.
The material facts list will get you laughing. Like,
Bad energy.
yeah, a lot of
bad
clients will ring saying, "Do we have to answer that?"
I think if they told that to the real estate agent, they go, "No, it's all right. We'll swing
It's
it.
all right, mate. Don't worry about
Make it in there." It's like friendly coast.
Make it a selling point.
Guys, look, thank you so much for your time, for coming on and being so open, with your journeys, how you got here. I love the story of how you got into it, Grace. Like, that's just, it's so cool because it's not planned. It's like, it's not, I grew up wanting to do this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know many people that probably grow up wanting to be specifically a conveyancer, in a specific field. So I really love that you embraced it like you have, and it really shines through in this interview. And Trent, your passion for your mum's legacy, what you're doing with Skilled Conveyancing, and the family that you've developed around the team is just awesome. I really love the vibes of this, catch up today in this podcast episode. So thank you once again for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. All right, guys. So if you need to catch up with Skilled Conveyancing or Abode, if you enjoyed the episode, you can subscribe, share, and leave us a review. And we'll see you next time on the No BS podcast. Have a look at Abode AI. See you guys. That's a wrap for this episode of the No BS Real Estate Podcast, powered by Abode AI. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need it. If you're looking for more guidance on your home buying journey, you can visit www.abode.com.au for expert advice, property insights, and the tools you need to find the right home with confidence. If you're already on your journey, you can also download our app. Just search Abode AI on the App Store or Google Play. Have any questions or want to connect, you can follow us on Instagram at abode.com.au or send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.